My name was Ahmed. I was a Sharia lawyer, respected and feared in equal measure. My life revolved around the rigid boundaries of ancient laws, a tightly woven tapestry of duty and tradition that I believed defined my existence. Yet, beneath the layers of discipline and authority, there was a gnawing emptiness, a longing for a truth I couldn't name, trapped in a storm of doubt. It was a day like any other in the London courtroom, yet the air was thick with tension. The stakes were high, and as I argued my case, something remarkable happened. I collapsed. In that moment of crisis, I slipped from the confines of my reality and faced the abyss. I was lost, drifting beyond the veil of death. And then I heard a voice that shattered the silence. Ahmed, I am Jesus. He didn't come to me as a figure draped in glory or power, but as a warm beam of light piercing through the darkness, revealing a spiritual realm I had only glimpsed in fleeting dreams. He laid bare the unseen conflict that had ensnared my soul and the world around us, a war against illusion, oppression, and the very fabric of my faith. I was shown the heavy chains of doctrine that held me captive, feeling the profound weight of deception and the freedom waiting just beyond. When I awoke, the truth was a double-edged sword. I was reborn, yet cast aside by my family and community, branded a traitor to all I had known. Fear clawed at my throat, the haunting question lingering. How could I abandon the life that defined me? I understood now, however, that my transformation wasn't merely personal. It was a calling to bring light into dark places, to awaken those suffocated by blind obedience. This journey would demand courage beyond measure, challenging the very essence of who I was. But I felt the tug of something greater, a purpose igniting within me, pushing me toward the truth that liberates rather than confines. And today, I stand ready to share this revelation. Before we delve deeper into this transformative encounter, I invite you to engage with me. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Your stories matter. And if you find hope and truth in what you hear, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Join me on this path, for what follows is not merely a testimony, it is an awakening. Let's seek the light together. As I entered the tense courtroom in London, I could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on me. My name is Salim, a Sharia lawyer dedicated to upholding the laws that govern our community. In this atmosphere, respect and adherence to tradition reign supreme. I've spent years standing at the intersection of cultures, where the rigid structures of Sharia clash with Western ideals of freedom and individuality. The tension was palpable, not just in legal matters but in the unspoken emotional repression that seemed to hang in the air, an undercurrent of fear woven through the fabric of our community's beliefs. As I prepared my arguments, I felt an internal conflict brewing within me. While I performed my duties with discipline, there was a part of me that couldn't ignore the growing sense that something was amiss. Something deeper that challenged the very foundation of my understanding. I had often pushed aside the questions that nibbled at my mind, the doubts that whispered of a hidden agenda, the elite manipulation steering the course of our lives. How could I stand firm in my convictions while feeling increasingly estranged from the core truths of existence? This tension, this spiritual war within me, demanded resolution. Then, in the midst of a particularly heated session, everything shifted. As I argued my case with fervor, a sudden wave of dizziness overwhelmed me. I felt myself collapsing, thrust into darkness before being enveloped in an all-consuming light. In this surreal space, I found myself face to face with Jesus, radiant and full of love. "Salim," he spoke, his voice reverberating with soothing authority. My heart raced as time stood still, and in that moment, I realized I was about to witness something extraordinary, an awakening that would change everything. In the presence of Jesus, revelations began to unfold. He showed me the layers of deception that had shaped my understanding of faith and societal structure. As I stood there, I was granted insights into the hidden agenda behind the conflicts that permeate our world, how political leaders exploit division and fear. I saw how these manipulations create barriers among us, fostering misunderstandings that perpetuate the very systems of oppression we seek to escape. I felt a newfound clarity. The battles we fight are not just in the courts or on the streets. They are spiritual in nature, demanding our awareness and action in the face of such overwhelming odds. As the light began to recede, I felt myself being pulled back to my reality, gasping for breath as the courtroom came into focus once again. The familiar faces of colleagues and clients stared back at me, but I was irrevocably changed. I realized that this experience was not just a moment of connection, it was a calling to share what I had learned and to urgently address the spiritual war raging around us. I began to understand that sharing my testimony could help others awaken from their own spiritual slumber, igniting a fire of truth to combat the deception that keeps us divided. With each heartbeat, I felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, prompting me to rise and embrace my role as a voice for those still yearning for liberation and enlightenment. The journey ahead promised challenges, but I knew that I had been transformed for a purpose, and I was ready to face whatever came next. As a respected Sharia lawyer in London, I often embody authority and morality in the eyes of my community. My name is Ahmed, and throughout my 35 years I've dedicated my life to upholding the principles and values of our faith. People rely on me to interpret the law with wisdom and fairness, yet beneath that disciplined exterior lies an emotional void I can no longer ignore. With every case I handle, I feel the weight of tradition pressing down on me, and deep within, a yearning stirs for something more meaningful than the rigid path laid out before me. I often find myself battling the tension between my steadfast faith and the whispers of doubt that creep into my thoughts. It's not that I no longer believe in the tenets of my faith. Rather, I feel a longing for a deeper truth, one that transcends the confines of the established doctrine. As I walk through the bustling streets of London, I observe a world filled with complexity and contradiction. I can't help but question the effectiveness of the narratives that have guided my life. Was my understanding of spirituality merely a set of rules to be followed, or was there a more profound connection waiting to be unveiled? This internal conflict reached its breaking point during a particularly intense court hearing. As I stood before the judge and jury, presenting my arguments with conviction, a sudden wave of dizziness overcame me. In the blink of an eye, I collapsed, and darkness enveloped me. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a place that felt both familiar and otherworldly, a dark realm that contrasted against the blinding light that soon surrounded me. It was there that I encountered Jesus, his presence radiating warmth and unconditional love. "Ahmed," he said. And in that moment, I felt seen and understood in a way I had never experienced before. As he spoke, I was inundated with revelations that shattered the limited perspective I had held for so long. Jesus revealed the hidden agenda behind the facade of our societal structures, the manipulation by the elite that fosters division and conflict among us. I was shown how fear and deception are wielded as weapons, tearing apart communities and drowning out the voices calling for unity and understanding. It was as though a veil had been lifted, and I was finally able to see the spiritual war playing out in the world around me, the battle for hearts and minds that often goes unnoticed. The urgency of his message surged through me, compelling me to share what I had learned. I witnessed the deep, ingrained deceptions that had kept so many of us living in shadows. I could feel the aching desire to awaken others, to encourage them to seek the truth that Jesus embodied. As the light enveloped me, the fear I had felt about my own doubts and questions was replaced by a sense of purpose. I realized that my voice mattered in this fight against deception, and the awakening I experienced was not solely for me. It was for everyone who longed for liberation from the constraints of misunderstanding and fear. And with that revelation, I knew my journey had only just begun. During my prayers, I often found myself engulfed in an escalating sense of emptiness. My name is Ahmed, a Sharia lawyer in London, and though I dedicated my life to the law and my faith, I began to feel as if I was merely going through the motions. Each prayer became a ritual devoid of meaning, and the weight of my doubts crashed heavily upon my shoulders. I constantly questioned my beliefs, wondering if there was more to life than the strict adherence to rules and expectations that my community held sacred. The tension of this spiritual war began to unfold within me, fueled by an inner voice that whispered relentlessly, urging me to seek a deeper understanding. It was during this tumultuous time that I started to experience strange, vivid dreams. In these dreams, a mysterious voice called to me, resonating with a familiarity that I couldn't explain. It was as if the voice beckoned me to something greater, a truth that lay just beyond my grasp. Each night brought forth new layers of confusion, wrapping me in a shroud of uncertainty. I found myself wrestling with the choice to share these dreams with anyone, fearing I would be labeled a heretic or shunned for questioning the very foundations of my upbringing. The fear of losing my community haunted me, yet the pull of that voice grew stronger, an incessant call that demanded my attention. One particularly overwhelming night, as I knelt in prayer, I finally surrendered to that call. I closed my eyes and invited whatever force it was to reveal itself. To my astonishment, I found myself transported into a realm of light, standing in the presence of Jesus. In that moment, all doubt dissipated, replaced by an overwhelming sense of love and acceptance. "Ahmed," he said gently, "you are here to awaken." The way he spoke pierced through my confusion, and as he revealed the hidden truths of our world, my heart raced with anticipation. Through his voice, I was shown the narratives that blinded us, the manipulation by the elite who foster division and instill fear to maintain control over society. I witnessed the spiritual war manifesting in our daily lives, the systemic deception that kept millions siloed in ignorance. I felt the urgency of our collective awakening, the pressing need to break free from the chains that bind us to outdated beliefs and practices. I watched, stunned, as entire communities fought each other, unaware that the real enemy was the deception that divided them, not their differing beliefs. As the visions unfolded, I began to understand that this experience wasn't just for me. It was a calling to rise up and share the truth with others steeped in similar darkness. Jesus' message resonated deep within my spirit, igniting a fire of determination to spread love and clarity to those still trapped by their own fears. I realized I had to confront my fear of rejection because the battles we face are not only in our hearts, they are societal and global. I returned to the waking world feeling transformed, filled with purpose and eager to embrace the challenges ahead. I knew I was meant to be a warrior in this spiritual war, ready to share the love and truth that Jesus had so passionately revealed to me. Amidst the tension of a particularly stressful day in court, I felt a wave of fatigue wash over me. My name is Ahmed, and I'm a Sharia lawyer in London. I had spent years striving to uphold the integrity of the law, navigating the complexities of my faith while balancing the expectations of my community. That morning had been filled with heated arguments, and as I presented my case, a sense of disconnection crept in. It was as though my body and mind were no longer aligned. Just when I thought I could push through, I collapsed, my world plunging into darkness. In that moment of unconsciousness, everything shifted. I found myself floating in a void, but then a brilliant light pierced through the darkness. The radiance enveloped me, and from within the light, a luminous figure emerged, Jesus. His presence was profoundly comforting, and despite the intensity of the moment, I felt a deep sense of peace wash over me. Ahmed. He called my name, and in that instant, I knew this encounter was divinely orchestrated. I felt as if he was reaching into my soul, unearthing the fears and doubts that had been buried deep within me. As he spoke, a series of revelations began to unravel, illuminating the shadows of my understanding. He revealed to me the reality of the spiritual war that raged both within my heart and in the world around me. You are bound by constraints that hinder your spirit, he explained, making it clear how the traditions I had always respected might also be trapping me. I saw glimpses of the hidden agenda orchestrated by the elite, individuals who thrive on division, fear, and control. These were not mere conspiracies. They were the painful truths of our existence, orchestrated to manipulate and keep communities apart. In those moments, I became increasingly aware of how my faith, which I believed was my anchor, could also be a vessel of deception. The doctrines I had followed so diligently began to look different through the lens of this awakening. I recognized that countless others were similarly ensnared, caught in webs, spun by misguided interpretations that served only to perpetuate separation. My heart ached for those still blind to the manipulation surrounding them, yearning for an awakening that would lead them to the truth of Jesus, love, and acceptance. As Jesus continued to unveil these truths, urgency intensified within me. The imparted wisdom was not merely for my own edification. It was a call to action. I could feel his encouragement, urging me to step into my role as a messenger of truth in this spiritual war. I realized then that while I carried the burden of potential rejection from my family and community, I also held the key to liberation for countless others. The light of revelation had illuminated my path, and with it came the responsibility to share what I had learned. As reality began to beckon me back, the anticipation of returning with this knowledge filled me with both dread and exhilaration, knowing that my journey had only just begun. As I regained consciousness, reality rushed back to me like a tidal wave, overwhelming and harsh. My name is Ahmed, and I had just encountered Jesus in a moment that shattered my understanding of faith and truth. In the wake of that profound experience, I found myself thrust back into a world where my very identity felt like a betrayal. My family and community, who once celebrated my role as a Sharia lawyer, now looked at me with disdain. They saw my awakening as a traitorous act, a rejection of everything we had held dear. The condemnation was palpable, saturating the air around me with a heaviness that was almost suffocating. Stripped of the acceptance I had once relied on, I grappled with intense feelings of guilt over my transformation. I had spent years dedicated to our customs and traditions, and now it felt as if I were standing on the precipice of an abyss, staring down at the uncertainty of my future. The idea of losing my family, a concept that once seemed inconceivable, now loomed large. How could I reconcile the love I felt for them with my unyielding desire to learn more about Jesus and the truths he had revealed? It was a delicate balance, fraught with tension, and each thought pushed me further into turmoil. In the solitude of my home, I found a quiet space to reflect. I tried to hold on to the light that Jesus had shown me, yet doubts began to creep in alongside the fear of rejection. I started to question whether I was truly worthy of the revelations I had received. Would my family ever understand that my journey was not about undermining our faith, but about seeking a deeper connection to the divine? Each day became a battle as I wrestled with the very essence of my identity. A Muslim lawyer now torn between the rigid laws I once revered and the liberating love I discovered in Jesus. As I navigated this emotional landscape, I turned inwards and sought comfort in Scripture, attempting to find clarity in the teachings of Jesus. The words leapt off the page, igniting sparks of understanding in my heart. I stumbled upon verses that spoke of love, forgiveness, and the importance of seeking truth. A message that resonated deeply with my own awakening. I knew that behind the facade of my community's norms lay a hidden agenda designed to maintain control and manipulate perceptions. Each reading became a prayer, a plea for guidance, as I began to grasp the urgency of the spiritual war we all faced. My search for truth led me to a clandestine group of individuals who, like me, felt trapped and confused. Together, we created a sanctuary where we could openly discuss our experiences. Their courage inspired me and helped to bolster my own. I witnessed how their journeys mirrored my own struggles. Each story was a testament to the power of awakening. We collectively confronted the painful realities of deception that had been woven into our understanding of faith and the world. It was here, amidst this newfound community of support, that I began to realize the profound impact my voice could have. The awakening I experienced was not just for me. It was a beacon for others still yearning to break free from the constraints of tradition and societal expectation. And deep down, I knew I was ready to step into the light, despite the risks that lay ahead. In the solitude of my home, I began a clandestine investigation into the Bible, holding tightly to the hope that I could find answers to the turmoil within my soul. I'm Ahmed, a Sharia lawyer in London, respected for my adherence to the law and tradition, but beneath that facade lay a growing spiritual void that I couldn't ignore. After my near-death experience and my encounter with Jesus, everything in my life felt precarious. I was now standing at the intersection of my faith and my fear, and I felt compelled to explore the scriptures that had once seemed so foreign to me. The first time I opened the Bible, it felt like stepping into a world of new possibilities. The words swirled around me, resonating with clarity and depth I had never anticipated. Each passage I read carried a weight of revelation, uncovering hidden truths that dispelled the confusion that had shrouded my spirit. I discovered stories of love, forgiveness, and awakening, yet the deeper I delved, the more I became aware of the unsettling truths about the world around me. The manipulation and deception perpetrated by the elite began to surface, revealing an agenda that felt all too familiar. This hidden agenda sought to control and divide, perpetuating fear within communities that, like mine, were built upon tradition and dogma. As I watched online testimony videos of others who had transitioned from Islam to Christianity, I felt a fierce connection to their journeys. Each story echoed my own struggles, moments of uncertainty followed by profound awakening. I saw how the spiritual war manifested in their lives, how they too had faced rejection and the burden of doubt. The urgency of their messages struck a chord within me, igniting a fire that pushed me further along my path. I was no longer alone in this search for truth. There were others willing to stand up against the societal expectations that sought to confine us. Connecting with a discreet Christian support group was a pivotal step in my journey. In those intimate gatherings, I found solace in sharing my struggles and fears. Each person in that room had their own battles to fight. We united in our shared experiences of awakening, revealing the strength found in vulnerability. There was a camaraderie that I had not anticipated, a sense of being understood that eased the burden of my isolation. Together, we confronted the deceptive narratives of the world, the wars fueled by division and the manipulation of truth that threatened our society. Despite the growing peace within this newfound faith, the fear of repercussions continued to linger. I often felt an ache in my heart as I thought of my family, the deep-rooted traditions they held dear, and their inability to understand my transformation. What if they saw me as a traitor, a betrayer of our shared beliefs? Could I risk losing the love and connection I had with them for the truth I now cherished? These questions haunted me, but I knew that the awakening I experienced was a calling, a responsibility to share the love and truth that I had found in Jesus. And with every heartbeat, I felt the pull of that mission, ready to confront any obstacles in my path, knowing that the spiritual war we face requires champions of truth. The moment I encountered Jesus felt like the earth beneath me shifted. My name is Ahmed, a Sharia lawyer in London, and up until that point, I had spent my life meticulously upholding the laws and values of my community. But in that fleeting moment of divine revelation, everything I thought I understood began to unravel. When I reopened my eyes to the world, I realized this experience transcended mere personal transformation. It called for a deeper action, an urgency to share what I had learned. The truth I had discovered was one I felt compelled to propagate, especially to those still ensnared in oppressive belief systems, just as I once was. During my time in the spiritual void, where darkness morphed into light, I heard the voice of Jesus clearly stating, "Your awakening is not just for you, but for others who seek the truth." I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility infiltrate my soul. Moments later, he revealed to me the hidden agenda that surrounded so many of our societal structures, an agenda designed by the elite to maintain control through deception, dividing communities while exploiting their fears. This wasn't just a spiritual war, it was a multifaceted battle for humanity's very essence, one fought in our hearts and minds as much as in our societies. Stepping back into the confines of my life felt surreal. The burdens of expectation pressed against my chest, but I now understood the stakes. My colleagues saw me as a steadfast upholder of the law, while inside, I was undergoing a seismic shift. I began to connect the dots between the revelations I had received and the struggles I observed daily in those around me. There were countless souls, just like I had been, laboring under the weight of cultural expectations, bound by rules that stifled their spirit. I could feel their pain, the yearning for freedom that echoed within my own heart. I started sharing my experience in private conversations, gently introducing the idea of a different kind of faith, one anchored in love and grace rather than fear and obligation. The responses, however, were mixed. Some were curious and captivated, drawn by the truth of love and acceptance. Others recoiled, fearful of the implications my revelations carried. They were hesitant to entertain any notion that challenged the societal norms we had all been conditioned to accept as absolute. Yet I pressed on, emboldened by the knowledge that what I was fighting for was far greater than personal acceptance. It was about awakening a collective consciousness. I recognized that this was just the beginning of my journey. The revelations I had received were not only meant to guide my path, but to serve as a catalyst for others. I knew there would be obstacles ahead, and I felt the pull of fear of rejection, fear of being labeled a traitor. But the truth of Jesus echoed within me, urging me to embrace my calling. With each encounter, each shared story, I felt the urgency of the spiritual war intensify. I was ready to step into my purpose, to carry the banner of truth and light, and to help others find their way in a world marked by hidden agendas and deception. The time for awakening is now, and I won't shy away from the battles that lay ahead. The movement toward truth had begun, and I was determined to be an integral part of it. Making the decision to leave my former life was one of the most challenging moments I've ever faced. My name is Ahmed, and for years I had been a respected Sharia lawyer in London. I dedicated myself to the laws and traditions that defined my existence, but an internal struggle festered beneath the surface. I often found myself wrestling with feelings of disconnection, caught in a world where my authority was not just respected but stifling. When I experienced that profound encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience, everything changed. It was as if the chains that bound me had finally been shattered, revealing a path I had never dared to tread. In a symbolic act of bravery, I chose to abandon my past, to leave my home, and change my name. It was a decision that stirred deep fears within me, particularly the fear of losing my identity and the respect I had garnered from my community. There was a sense of liberation in shedding the confines of who I used to be, yet the worry about the repercussions of my choice loomed large. With my new identity, I felt a surge of clarity and purpose, but the challenges of this mission weighed heavily on my shoulders. How could I step into a role of evangelism and support for others if I were constantly haunted by the ghosts of my former life? As I began to navigate this new path, the reality of the spiritual war became vividly apparent. I felt called to share the love and redemption that Jesus had revealed to me, especially with those who still felt trapped by their own oppressive belief systems. In my heart, I harbored the conviction that many in my community were unaware of the manipulation and deception layered within our societal structures, an elite hidden agenda that seeks to control and divide us. I committed myself not only to my own awakening, but also to the awakening of others, believing that sharing the truth could initiate change. The first step was to seek out others who were grappling with similar transformations. I found solace in a clandestine support group where individuals shared their stories of faith and awakening. Together, we confronted the barriers erected by tradition, asking the hard questions about the spiritual war we were facing. Each meeting became a testament to our courage, a space where we could explore the truths Jesus had revealed without fear of judgment. I discovered that by speaking openly about my journey, I could help others break free from the burdens of deception that had long held them captive. Still, every conversation and every new connection brought with it the haunting thought of my family's rejection. How could I face them, knowing that my transformation might be met with disbelief and anger? This fear lurked in the background, but I knew I could not allow it to define my journey. My heart called me to greater love, urging me to rise above the fear and reach out with compassion. The awakening I experienced was not merely for my own liberation. It was a charge to be an advocate for others still searching for that same light. With each passing day, I felt an urgency grow within me, compelling me to raise my voice and confront the hidden agendas of deception that surrounded us, ready to stand for the truth no matter the cost. Years after my life turned upside down, I found myself establishing a new existence in a different country. I chose to leave behind my former life as a Sharia lawyer in London, a role I had devoted my entire career to with both pride and performance. My name is Ahmed, and through the journey of faith that encompassed both loss and awakening, I learned to walk a path of truth. This new city, a far cry from the familiar streets I once roamed, felt like a blank canvas, an opportunity to write a new story, one that I hoped would echo the revelations of love and light I had experienced. Each day in this new place brought forth challenges, but it also gifted me with the chance to impact the lives of others. I began to share my testimony, recounting the powerful moments when I encountered Jesus during my near-death experience. With every word, I felt the weight of my past transform into a mission for encouragement and healing. The stories of those who had also felt spiritually lost resonated with me deeply, and I made it my purpose to offer hope to those still shackled by the hidden agenda of deception designed to manipulate the narrative of faith. I wanted others to understand that they were not alone in their struggles that so often left them feeling empty and confused. Yet despite the distance from my previous life, a longing to reconcile with my family remained at the forefront of my heart. I missed them dearly, even amid the silent judgments and the fear of rejection that accompanied my transformation. I envisioned a future where we could discuss our beliefs openly, where the barriers erected by tradition could be dismantled through love and understanding. The spiritual war one had witnessed was not just a battle for my own soul, it was a collective effort to unite those fragmented by conflicting beliefs. I held on to the hope that one day my family would see the truth I had embraced, the truth that had initially separated us but ultimately called me toward a deeper love. As I continued to engage with my mission, I became more aware of the current events that shaped our world. I watched as division ran rampant, fueled by the machinations of the elite, who thrive on fear and misunderstanding. Technology, which promised to connect us, often served to isolate and distract from the essential truths underlying our existence. I began to draw parallels between my own awakening and the broader need for a societal revival, a call for awareness that extended far beyond faith and deeply into our shared humanity. Each revelation I encountered fueled my determination to confront these issues head-on, to shine a light on the deception that kept us apart. With each passing day, I felt the call to speak out grow stronger. I started organizing community events where individuals could come together and share their journeys, creating a space for dialogue that was missing in many lives. The excitement and anticipation in those gatherings were palpable. People were eager to engage with the truths they had long overlooked. I reminded them that every step taken toward awakening was a valiant act in the ongoing spiritual war. I believed that together we could change the narrative, challenge the status quo, and inspire a movement toward unity and understanding. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with obstacles, but I was determined to pursue it, knowing that every effort mattered in the fight for truth and love. In the bustling heart of London, I dedicated my life to the law as a Sharia lawyer, a role that brought me both respect and expectation. My name is Ahmed, and for years, I took pride in my ability to navigate the complexities of our legal system while upholding the traditions of my faith. But deep inside, beneath the facade of confidence and authority, a profound emptiness lingered. Each day felt like a performance, each decision weighed down by the confines of my identity. I often found myself alone in my thoughts, wrestling with a longing for something more meaningful, a truth that seemed just out of reach. Then, one fateful day, everything changed. As I stood in the courtroom arguing a pivotal case, I felt a sudden wave of dizziness wash over me, and before I knew it, I collapsed. Darkness ensued, and in that void, I experienced a transformation that shattered my understanding of reality. I found myself in a celestial space, where the light radiated with an intensity that illuminated the deepest corners of my spirit. It was there, in this sacred realm, that I met Jesus. His presence was overwhelming, a blend of love and authority that filled me with an indescribable peace. Ahmed, he spoke, and it felt as if he could see through every layer of my being, touching the pain and confusion that lay beneath. You are caught in a spiritual war. In that moment, a torrent of revelations poured forth, unearthing the layers of deception that had bound me for so long. I was shown the hidden agendas orchestrated by the elite, uncovering the manipulation woven into our societal fabric, shaping how we perceive faith, truth, and justice. The barriers that had kept communities divided were all part of a greater scheme, a strategy to maintain control through fear and misunderstanding. The urgency of his message resonated in my heart, igniting a flame of understanding within me. As the visions unfolded, I began to see how these revelations were not just relevant to my life, they were symbolic of the struggle faced by so many. I recognized the pain in the eyes of those around me. Individuals caught in oppressive belief systems, yearning for freedom yet terrified of the repercussions of seeking the truth. I felt compelled to share this awakening, to challenge the established norms that dictated our lives. The realization struck me. While religion can often entrap individuals in fear, the liberating truth found in Jesus calls out to even those who resist the journey of spiritual transformation. When I awoke from the experience, everything felt different, yet the societal expectations of my life remained. I returned to a world filled with judgment and rigid interpretations, but now armed with a sense of purpose I couldn't ignore. I knew I had to step forward into the light of this truth, even if it meant facing rejection from my family and the community. Each day became a battle not just for my own spiritual freedom, but for the hearts of those who still dwelled in darkness, caught in the throes of deception. As I prepared to share my experiences and stand against the tide of misunderstanding, I felt the call to action surge within me, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in this spiritual war for truth and love. And so as I stand before you now, I urge you to reflect on your own journey. Have you ever glimpsed through the veil of this world to feel a pull toward something greater, something that transcends the boundaries of belief and tradition? The echoes of my meeting with Jesus resonate not just within me, but in the very fabric of our collective existence. A reminder that we are all called to awaken to the truth, lurking beneath the surface of our daily lives. The revelations I experienced unveiled a spiritual war, one that reaches far beyond personal transformation. It's a battle for clarity, understanding, and love amidst a world that often seeks to divide us. You too are part of this awakening, whether you realize it or not. The chains of deception are heavy, but the promise of liberation lies in your willingness to question, to seek, and to embrace the light. I want to hear from you. What do you feel when you consider the notion that layers of spiritual manipulation surround us, influencing our beliefs and communities? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters. Together, we can foster a community ready to confront the challenges posed by hidden agendas with courage and compassion. If my story has ignited something within you, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell so you never miss an opportunity to delve deeper into the profound realities of faith and existence. The journey ahead is filled with revelations waiting to unfold, and the next video will lead us into yet another powerful testimony of awakening. Thank you for staying with me on this incredible journey. I'm Ahmed, and let me remind you, the truth may be hidden, but it always finds a way to illuminate even the darkest corners of our hearts.